with a theme more to protect big cats, which are severely under threat. In Kenya, the population of lions, leopards and cheetahs has been going down as they are killed in human-wildlife conflict and as they lose their habitat to human activities. We are talking about the challenge facing human beings on this earth versus animals, and that's what we want to talk about at this moment. And we have Trish Sewe here in studio. She's a communications manager at Wildlife Direct. Trish, many thanks indeed for finding time to be here with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm sure there was some activity that your organization was involved with this particular Saturday. It was marked globally. Now in Kenya, in 2018, can animal lovers really celebrate World Wildlife Day? Can they walk around with confidence knowing that within the next 20, 30 years, some of these animals that Kenyans are most proud of, and we have some statistics in terms of the numbers that we have, are going to be safe, are going to be okay? Where are we as a country?
So as a country, I have to say that we have done quite a lot, but that doesn't mean that we should start celebrating. World Wildlife Day is celebrated every year on 3rd March. And for us as an organization, we want to acknowledge the milestones that we have done as a country in terms of protecting wildlife, but we don't live in a cocoon. There are challenges that cut across borders, and wildlife do not just stay in Kenya. It's in Africa and it's across all the other continents. Unfortunately, the numbers have been on the decline. One of the biggest challenges we have right now is that if you look at majority of the species, they're either threatened, endangered, or vulnerable. The elephants have gone down by 30%. We used to have millions of elephants, and now we have about 350,000 elephants left in Kenya, in Africa. And across the world, having 350 African elephants remaining with about just 20 to maybe less than 25,000 in Kenya, that is such a sad story, because in Africa, safari is the key target that brings tourists.
Of course, attraction.
Yes. When they disappear, we won't have this revenue.
Which brings me back to my question again. Was there anything to celebrate about on Saturday when we talk about wildlife in Kenya or Africa?
There was a little bit to celebrate. One is that in Kenya, the legislation for protecting wildlife, we have a Wildlife Act, which is very, very comprehensive. And as a country, I might say that African countries can learn a lot from us. In terms of protecting some of the endangered species like elephants, we get a top priority. In terms of the rhinos, which are almost going into extinction. We are doing so much, and you look at the numbers, when the numbers compared previous years versus now, the number of those that are being killed in terms of poaching has gone down. Why? Because we have put in measures that conservation partners, government, and also legal measures have been put in place to make sure that poaching has gone down almost by 80%. And
in this country?
So in this country. And so we have that to celebrate. There's a lot of milestones we have been able to achieve by pushing for stricter measures in terms of having last year seeing that an ivory poacher was convicted and put into jail for 20 years. And that was unheard of before. Now, because of these amazing laws, we are trying to see, we have a guidebook that is trying to translate local, the legal Wildlife Act, the legal jargon, into simple terms that the layman can understand. And we have moved a step further to try and see if we can translate these into Kiswahili, which is our national language. And that is to reach as many more people, and hopefully we are going to be launching it, because World Wildlife Day may have been celebrated or marked on 3rd, but we want to dedicate the whole month of March to creating awareness about the big cats, which are going down, about other wildlife that are also endangered, and what, as Kenyans, we can do, because this is a shared responsibility.
This is a shared responsibility. I must say, I'm glad you brought some good news, because my research did not reveal a lot of good news. My research showed me that Kenya right now is facing various challenges: illegal grazing in national parks such as Tsavo, illegal settlements built on designated national park land, closure of wildlife corridors by human settlement. Do I need to keep going on? What's the status of some of these things that I've mentioned? I'm sure you have the research.
Yes, it is true that human activities has been the biggest threat to wildlife right now. As you can see, land is not increasing. but the population is increasing. So this is something that we have to grapple with. It's a huge challenge, but I believe that when we work together, we can always find a balance between how we can coexist as human beings and wildlife. Because if we take care of this wildlife, they're going to take care of us. One of the things that I know is that there's so many conservation partners that have come up with innovative ways of trying to protect wildlife, but also protect their own livestock and people. Unfortunately, human-wildlife conflict is still a huge challenge. One of the things we are doing as Wildlife Direct is we are focusing on innovative ideas, such as the Lion Lights discovery that was done by Richard Turere, a very young man who at the age of 13 discovered a way to keep lions away from his boma.
And it's been broadcast across the world.
It has been broadcast. The most unfortunate thing is that we are not giving these kind of young innovators recognition that they deserve. I'll give an example. When Jack Ma came to Kenya, the first thing he asked for was to have Richard Turere as his personal guest.
Really?
This is someone from outside recognizing our own. We need to do something and celebrate these young people. And what we're going to be doing for this month is that we have organized a Wildlife Weekend Day. So it's a weekend of 16th and 17th where we're inviting everybody. All roads should lead to Yaya Center. And we are going to be targeting about 13,000 people during the day with more information about wildlife, about big cats and why they're important and what you can do, because this is something that you don't have to be in the sector to be able to do something about.
Fair enough. I know that you've talked about human beings being the biggest challenge in terms of human-wildlife conflict, and I'm glad you verified what we put at the bottom there, that wildlife's biggest enemy. It's sort of a question, and the answer is the human being. But talk to us about climate change as well. Less rains each year, more wildlife encroaching on available food in habitated areas. How can, tell us about the correlation between human-wildlife conflict, wildlife-livestock conflict, and climate change?
So climate change is contributing in a big way into what we are seeing right now. But climate change is about how responsible are we for our planet. We ignore this.
Again, it's another human issue.
It's another human issue that we are pretending that climate change does not exist. It does exist, and it is about the behavior and how we are living in our planet. One is taking care of it. You've just talked about today earlier about conservation of forests. When we deplete our forest, what kind of quality of air are we going to put? And I bring in the private sector, the manufacturers, the kind of pollution we emit into the environment. All these things are contributing to what we are seeing. Drought is something that is facing us right now. We are reaching a point where water shortages are going to be acute, and water is life. And if we don't have life, what is going to be left? So it's all a circle. It's all a cycle that is coming in, and it boils down to responsibility about choices we make in terms of the development we want to bring into the country. Are we going to focus into balancing infrastructure development versus conservation that will give us good quality of life?
It's interesting that you mentioned infrastructure. Sorry to interrupt you there. I want to read a tweet by the CEO of Wildlife Direct, that's Dr. Paula Kahumbu. She tweeted on the 23rd of February, SGR construction has begun in the national park. It's a sad, sad day for Kenya, when the voices of millions of protesters seeking to have our heritage have been ignored. The great iron snake has taken our jumbos in Savo, and now our rhinos are at risk. But someone tweeted back at her and said, I think the economic benefit of the majority and strategic interests of a nation should always come first. Let us not act like some Kenyans love animals more than everyone else. Talk to me about those two tweets,
Very interesting.
and the response.
Very interesting. I think one of the things is that I look at both tweets, and they're all focused on looking at quality of life, a good development that will bring in economic aspect. But we forget that Nairobi National Park is the only park in the world that is within a capital city. 10, 20 years from now, this gem that we are not noticing is going to be of more value than what we are seeing right now. Why am I saying this? As we continue to develop, we always need to find and strike a balance. We need to learn from those who've already gone through the challenges we are going right now. And we are not against having the SGR come into the country. We want development. We want this railway line to benefit Kenyans. But we are also saying, is there another way that if this railway line could pass right outside the park and save this little gem that is going to be in future something that is very priceless? One of the things that saddens me is that as we see small groups of people demonstrating about SGR on the streets, Nairobi has more than 3 million Kenyans. And Nairobi National Park is our park as Kenyans.
No one's on the streets.
But the majority of people are not on the streets. Why? Because they don't know the value of this park. We may look at the tweet where the guy is talking about economic interest becoming fast. Economic interest could still be fast if we preserve this national park, because we're not looking at the value that this park is going to bring us 10, 20 years when all places are so developed and we need quality of life in terms of green space, air to breathe, a break from the city busy life. When we have all these skyscrapers, we're going to be wishing there was this small space where we could just take a break, admire our wildlife, and our children as well. We want a better place for our children. All of us work towards, I want to leave a better place for the next generation. And by clearing all these at the cost of
that
development, we will not have this. So we have to strike a balance. And for us...
Okay, briefly, please. Yes, go ahead.
I think the balance is that it starts with a dialogue and conversation. Even before the SGR construction started, in 2016, we brought in all stakeholders and we said, let's sit together and discuss. And people came with alternative routes. We had a report, and I will be happy to leave this with you.
Okay.
And this was to tell the president that if there is any possibility for this SGR to pass outside, if it is going to be a little bit more expensive, we're already paying for it. Why not pay for that little extra to save this park?
Okay, but we still see that it's going through the park.
It's very unfortunate.
And I certainly hope those who are, who can make a difference are certainly watching this interview and have had a chance to get their hands on that report. Really limited time for this interview. I think we'll have to look for another time to continue having this discussion. Trish Sewe, Communications Manager, Wildlife Direct, thank you.
Thank you so much
for finding time to come here to be with us today. I want to take you back to Mombasa now to listen to the Speaker of the National Assembly, Justin Muturi, addressing members of the National Assembly who are